Welcome back, Disney and Pixar fans. Today we have a fun video for you guys. On November 5th, 2004, Pixar released its sixth feature film, The Incredibles, and it was an instant classic. This superhero-filled movie tackled everything from family issues to the classic superhero tropes of saving the world from doom and destruction. This movie had a little bit of everything, which made it the perfect movie for the whole family. In The Incredibles, the audience was introduced to the Parr family, which included Bob Parr, Helen Parr, and their children, Violet, Dash, and Jack-Jack. At the beginning of the movie, we see Bob and Helen in action as their superhero personas, Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl. It isn't long into the movie before we see superheroes being outlawed on account of the destruction that follows large-scale battles that they're often a part of. After starting a family, Bob and Helen are forced to live a normal life with their not-so-normal children. Violet, who can make herself invisible, Dash, who's been gifted with super speed, and their baby Jack-Jack, who is equipped with an entire arsenal of powers yet to be discovered. Tired of living a normal life, Mr. Incredible jumps at the opportunity to reboot his role as Mr. Incredible when he's summoned to an island to fight an out-of-control robot. Sadly, it's a trap that ultimately leads to him getting into some serious trouble, leaving it up to his family of supers to save him. In this video, we're going to discuss 10 insane theories about Pixar's Incredibles that will forever change how you watch the movie. Be sure to watch till the end to find out who Jack-Jack grew up to be. Boo from Monsters, Inc. is actually a younger Violet from The Incredibles. First up on our list involves The Incredibles, along with another Pixar classic from the early 2000s, Monsters, Inc. Monsters, Inc. debuted 3 years before The Incredibles, but was a character from Monsters, Inc. actually the eldest of the Parr children? Some theorize that the lovable Boo from Monsters, Inc. may actually be, in fact, a younger version of Violet Parr. At first, this theory seems a little far-fetched, but the more you look at it, the more solid it seems to come. For starters, in Monsters, Inc., we're told that the professional scarers are assigned to children that best suit their scaring ability, and as we know, Randall was assigned to Boo. This makes a lot of sense when you figure the best type of monster to scare a child who is struggling with these new abilities would be a monster with similar abilities, in this case, the power to turn invisible. Another piece of evidence is the fact that whenever Boo needs to hide, she seemingly disappears. Sully is always stunned at how good she is at hiding. Could this be because she is turning invisible just like Violet can? Or how about the fact that Boo is in no way afraid of Sully, who is a tall and hulking monster? Could it be because he reminds her of someone in her life? Maybe her father, Mr. Incredible? Boo is Edna's daughter. Speaking of Boo's parental figures, this next theory actually names her the child of a different character from Pixar's Incredible. Number 2 in our video is the theory that Boo is Edna's child, not Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl's. Much like the last theory, Pixar fans are finding it easier to believe that Boo is in fact from the Incredibles world, especially with her seemingly superpowered ability to just disappear. Some look at Boo's dark hair and can't help but notice a resemblance between the little girl and super fashionista Edna. This is leading some to believe that Edna is Boo's mother along with a super for a father. Now this brings up the question, who would be Boo's father? Some think it might be Thunderhead, who was mentioned by Edna in the film when she says that he is good with kids. It's beginning to look like many Pixar theorists are starting to make more and more connections between The Incredibles and Monsters, Inc.'s worlds. Violet is Helen's daughter, but not Bob's. While we're on the subject of superpowered parents, for the third spot in our video, we're going to talk about Violet. Some theorists believe that she may not be the daughter of Mr. Incredible, but instead the daughter of the deceased superhero known as Snug, who appears to have the same jet black hair that we see on Violet. Let's take a look at some of the facts that we know. Violet is Helen's firstborn. This combined with the fact that Elastigirl keeps a picture of her with Snug next to the other pictures of the family might be a little bit of insight into Helen's past. Maybe she spent time with Snug before supers were outlawed but ended up with Bob Parr, not before becoming pregnant with the eldest of their children. This would also explain how neither of Violet's current parents share her hair color. Maybe it's because only one of them is a biological parent and Bob is just a father figure. Edna used to be a supervillain. Up next, let's take a closer look at Edna Mode. In this theory, we take a deeper dive into Edna's history and where she came from with all of her knowledge of everything super. Some people are beginning to think that she is a villain who has been reformed and is now helping fight against the side she once swore her allegiance to. The first piece of evidence that may support this theory is one of Edna's throwaway lines about not dwelling on the past because it can be too distracting. Is this her referring to the fact that she needs to forget her villainous past? If we look at her lair, we see quite a few signs that may point to her history of being a villain, especially when you look at the architecture, which is all very dark, not to mention the auto turrets and explosives that would desolate anybody who entered without permission. Rather than just subdue as a hero would, it's very violent and almost evil, thus begging the question, was this Edna's evil lair? This would also explain how she could be the mother to Boo, who also has superpowers. Maybe this would even explain why Edna chose to give Boo up to be adopted in case anything should happen to herself. This could also be why she's so close to the Parr family, to help the Supers and to watch after Violet if Violet is really Boo from Monsters, Inc. The government was actually supporting Syndrome the whole time. Taking up the number 5 slot in today's video is quite a shocker. Was the government actually supporting Syndrome the entire time? Some Pixar theorists are beginning to see it that way. For starters, at the beginning of the movie, when they outlaw Supers, we find out that there are government agents that had jobs based around watching Supers and making sure they did not reveal their powers. And if they did reveal them, they must relocate the retired Supers. But when the Parr family just disappears, there was no alarm. No one seemed to worry. As it would have it, the government wanted to stop Supers from operating, and who better than Syndrome when it comes to dealing with Supers? Killing them would mean that the government no longer needed to spend money on cleaning up after them. It would be a clear win in the government's eyes. Frozone is a government employee. One of the more iconic heroes in the series, Frozone gets a thorough examination in this next theory. Pixar fans are beginning to think our icy surfer is an employee of the government, the same government that banned Supers in the first place. Theorists are beginning to wonder if he is actually only semi-retired. What if he works for the government on secret missions sometimes when they need him? He did appear to be one of the more cooperative Supers when it comes to them outlawing superheroes. Frozone would also be in a great position for the government to use him as an informant. He's a high-level superhero with close connections to many other high-level supers. Also, when he needs his supersuit, his wife doesn't seem surprised that he's asking for it. She's more upset that he promised to spend time with her and is now running out on another superhero-themed errand. Edna was really the one who stopped Syndrome. Coming in at number 7, we have an interesting one. Was Edna the one who stopped Syndrome all along? The more we look at it, the more Pixar fans are beginning to think so. As we know, Edna is very vocal about how she feels towards capes. No capes! As she is the best in the business, it would come as no surprise if Syndrome turned to her for guidance and a new suit. This is when theorists believe that she saw him slowly turning into the villain we know him as. Thus, she breaks her no-cape rule and designs him a suit that in the end would be his undoing, and further supporting the earlier theory that she is a reformed supervillain, trying to make up for her past as a former supervillain. Takes one to know one, as they say. Jack-Jack will lose most of his powers. Next up, let's talk about arguably the most powerful member of the Parr family, Jack-Jack. At the end of the first film, we find out that he has an unknown number of powers, each one seemingly more insane than the last. This led most people to believe that he was going to have a ton of powers for his whole life and would be nearly unstoppable. But what a lot of fans have been finding more likely is that his powers are still developing, and as he grows, his powers will begin to manifest themselves better. They will begin to become more focused, and that is when Jack-Jack will develop his specific and true power set. This could explain why the rest of his family isn't surprised to see he has a countless number of abilities. Maybe it's because they're used to it and have already gone through it 2 times with Violet and Dash. Despite his claims, Syndrome is actually a super. His power is intelligence. For the 9th theory, let's take a closer look at Syndrome and his abilities. Throughout the movie, the audience is led to believe that Syndrome is just a powerless fan who felt betrayed and used his tech to become a villain. Some fans are starting to think that the villain had powers after all and they just hadn't been talked about on screen. As we know, Buddy and his inventions end up becoming the main threat for the Parr family, but how is he able to come up with those ideas on his own? Even at a young age, he was showing off his rocket boots that he himself designed, believing he did not have powers. What if his power was in fact his brilliant mind? This would explain how he's capable of stopping an entire world of superpowered beings with just his tech, with no help from anyone other than himself. It was the tech that he built with his super intellect, designed to dispose of heroes in the most efficient manner. Syndrome from the first movie is actually Jack-Jack. Last but not least involves the true identity of Syndrome, the main antagonist of The Incredibles. Pixar has made the audience aware that Syndrome is the villain alias of Buddy, the child at the beginning of the movie that gets rejected by Mr. Incredible. But have you ever noticed how similar our main villain looks to the youngest of the Parr family, Jack-Jack? Honestly, Buddy kind of looks like a cross between Jack-Jack and Mr. Incredible. Some people have even theorized that though Jack-Jack exhibited a multitude of different abilities, he somehow loses his powers in the near future and ends up being rejected by his family. But, using his high intelligence level, he somehow manages to go back in time and acts as if his name is Buddy. He tries to help his dad and prove himself worthy at the beginning of the film, only to be rejected again. This double rejection turns him to madness, driving him to devote his life to eradicating supers and going as far as kidnapping himself as a baby, maybe just to protect himself as he goes forth in his plan to eradicate his family and the rest of the supers on planet Earth. Who knows, maybe we'll see one of these theories turn out to be true if they ever create a third Incredibles movie. I know most fans are hoping to get another installment in the franchise, and it seems like they have a lot of content to work with within the universe. I hope you enjoyed today's video. That's all, Disney fans. Let us know what you thought of this video in the comments, and like and subscribe for more magically packed videos.